Have you ever stopped to ask yourself what drives us in the world today? What do we value? What do we pursue? Power, wealth, status, fleeting pleasure? Are we not, in many ways, like Tony Soprano, trapped in the same relentless cycle of craving and dissatisfaction? This is the voice of the last philosopher, a dead man resurrected through algorithms to dissect popular culture in search of knowledge. In my view, The Sopranos is not merely a television series. It is a mirror held up to late-stage Western civilization. It is Roman decadence wrapped in a cheap tracksuit. But in this vulgarity, there is truth. In this irony, there is revelation. In this video, I will show you what Tony never realizes, and what we must all realize if we are to achieve real freedom in the face of chaos, suffering, and meaninglessness. And by the end of this video, you may be one step closer to breaking free from the cycle. We'll start with Tony Soprano, capo, and later boss of the Demio crime family. He embodies the paradox of modern man. He is at once creator and destroyer, father and tyrant, patient and predator. But unlike the Übermensch of my own philosophy, a being who creates his own values and lies beyond good and evil. Tony is shackled by the past, bound by tribal codes, masquerading as tradition. He is no free spirit, but a man afraid of the freedom he pretends to wield. Ask yourself, is Tony a master of his fate or merely its servant? Tony's life is ruled by two contradictory systems: the moral vacuum of the mob and the sentimental bourgeois dream of suburban family life. In him, Apollo and Dionysus wage civil war. At dinner, he is the patriarch, yet he fears the judgment of his daughter. On the streets, he wields a gun, yet cowers before the cold, dispassionate logic of therapy. He suffers from panic attacks, not merely as a clinical symptom, but as a profound existential cry. His very soul rebels against the lie of his own identity. He lives in a world where the gods are dead, and yet he clings to the rituals of old: omerta, vendetta, hierarchy. This is not the man who overcomes himself. This is the man who feeds upon himself. In his weekly sessions with Dr. Jennifer Melfi, Tony attempts to do what most men lack the courage to attempt: to confront himself. Yet what transpires in that office is not self-overcoming, but self-deception. Melfi, who believes herself to be a rational actor in a world of emotional beasts, serves as the surrogate priest of this story. But unlike the Christian priest, she offers no salvation, only diagnosis. She cannot redeem Tony, only analyze him. What is psychoanalysis in The Sopranos but the secular confessional? And what is Melfi, in the end, but another moral coward, abandoning her principles the moment they threaten her safety? Does introspection lead to truth, or does it become another mask we wear? Tony never becomes truly self-aware. He simply becomes more efficient at maintaining his delusion. I wrote of the noble soul as one that says yes to life in all its horror. Tony says yes to comfort, control, and tradition, but never to life in its totality. He blinks each time before the abyss. The family, that decaying bourgeois institution, is rendered in The Sopranos not as sanctuary, but as the very arena of moral conflict. Carmela, Tony's wife, embodies the hypocrisy of the American dream. She craves spiritual purity while bathing in blood money. Her attempts to seek moral redemption through charity, through flirtation with priests, are laughably futile. She does not want to be free. She wants to feel forgiven without giving up the fruits of sin. And what of the children? Meadow and AJ. Those vessels of potential, those would-be Übermenschen born into the rot of decayed values. Meadow begins with idealism, but soon drifts into the safety of wealth and status. AJ is the most tragic of all, a weakling who senses the void, but lacks the courage to leap into it. He is modern man distilled to essence, anxious, impotent, always distracted. Can a generation raised in comfort ever forge its own values? The family in The Sopranos is no longer the source of strength. It is the cocoon that prevents metamorphosis. It is not the hearth of becoming, but the mausoleum of inertia. The violence in the Sopranos is both shocking and banal. Hits are ordered over cappuccinos. Friends are garroted while discussing real estate. Violence has become bureaucratic. In this, the mob mirrors the state, what Weber called the monopoly of legitimate violence. But legitimacy here is granted, not by law, but by custom. The greatest horror of the series is its sense of eternal recurrence, the sense that nothing truly changes. Bosses die, new bosses rise, but the machine churns on. The human spirit, trapped in amber. This is the antithesis of becoming. Do you see in your own life patterns you dare not break? Characters like Paulie, Silvio, and Christopher are caught in this loop. Christopher, the would-be artist, is perhaps the only one who glimpses another path. But even he succumbs, first to heroin, then to nihilism. His art is not strong enough to save him, and his death is meaningless. And yet, for all this talk of damnation, where is God in the Sopranos? He is absent, or worse, irrelevant. The Catholicism of the characters is performative, ritualistic, hollow. Even the devil, that old adversary, makes no appearance. Evil here is not metaphysical, it is administrative. In this godless world, men like Tony become their own gods, but not the gods of Olympus, nor the creators of new values. They are petty tyrants in tracksuits. The will to power is real, yes, but it is unaccompanied by the will to transcend. In a world without gods, who holds you accountable? The infamous final scene, Tony at a diner, journey playing, his family arriving one by one, ends not with resolution, but with a cut to black. What is this, if not the most honest ending of all? Life, after all, does not provide closure. Meaning is not found in narrative arcs, but in the interpretation of events. I have said that interpretation is the essence of existence. There are no facts, only perspectives. Was Tony killed? Perhaps. Or perhaps he simply continues, forever eating onion rings, forever looking over his shoulder, forever avoiding the mirror. The great flaw of The Sopranos, the one piece of truth that I can offer you, which the show never quite grasps, has to do with something both profoundly simple and utterly complex. The need for radical self-overcoming, the transformative power of will. While the show explores themes of guilt, power, identity, and morality, it ultimately stalls in the same place Tony Soprano finds himself, caught in an endless loop of self-doubt, failure, and the constant friction between his base desires and the superficial attempts at transcending them. It seems to suggest, in its darkest moments, that we are all doomed to remain prisoners of our nature, of our past, of our circumstances. There is no real liberation. There is no fundamental escape from the patterns that define us. Tony is trapped, yes, but he is not beyond redemption or transcendence. He simply lacks the will to embrace it fully. The characters in The Sopranos all circle around this central truth, but they never reach it. Not because they don't possess the potential, but because they don't dare to confront the full depths of what that would require. You see, the insight missing from the show is the power of the will to create new values, to break through the cyclical patterns of mediocrity and self-destruction. The show suggests that Tony's downward spiral is inevitable, that he cannot transcend his criminality, his family dysfunction, his emotional paralysis, and in doing so, it misses the true potential of becoming. This is the key truth I would offer, the ability to remake oneself, to break the chains of the past, the desires, the moral conventions of others. That is the most profound act of freedom available to human beings. Yes, Tony has the will to power, but he never directs it in a way that can truly transform him. He continues to chase fleeting pleasures, using his violence and authority to control his world, but he never steps into the realm of creating something new, something greater than the sum of his past actions. He doesn't embrace his chaos and use it to fuel his own metamorphosis. Instead, he succumbs to it. The show, in its depiction of Tony's constant existential struggle, misses the fact that we are not condemned to our patterns. The past is not our prison, and the self is not a fixed entity. The will to power is not just about controlling others, it's about controlling and transforming oneself. The modern person, especially in a world as chaotic and meaning-deprived as Tony's, must come to recognize that the present moment holds the key to transcending one's limitations, not in some grand moment of external salvation, but in the constant recreation of self. It is about shedding the skin of the old self, the one defined by guilt, tradition, society, and helplessness, and becoming something other, something beyond. This is the essence of my philosophy of the Übermensch, the becoming of a person who creates their own values, not as a rejection of the past, but as an overcoming of it. And that is precisely what the Sopranos fails to grasp. The characters, especially Tony, never make the leap from conscious awareness of their limitations to radical self-transformation. So the missing piece, the insight I can shed light on, is this. We are not defined by our past. We are defined by what we choose to become. This is what Tony never realizes. This is what we must all realize. And this is the truth that can provide real freedom in the face of chaos, suffering, and meaninglessness. To take the world in its raw, chaotic form and say, I will become something more than this, is the highest act of will. The question is whether we, like Tony, have the courage to become, rather than merely exist. Now let me explain why this is valuable. In my Thus Spoke Zarathustra, I speak of the need to transcend the last man, the creature who has settled into comfort, mediocrity, and meaninglessness. Tony is not the Übermensch, of course. He is a man deeply embedded in his own contradictions. But that is exactly why he resonates so deeply with the modern viewer. We see our own shadows reflected in his struggle. He is both a cautionary tale and a mirror that shows us the danger of becoming too complacent in our search for meaning. The modern viewer who engages with Tony's journey is forced to question, what do I truly desire? What am I willing to sacrifice in the pursuit of my own power, my own success? It invites a confrontation with the uncomfortable truths of one's own inner life. Are we too entangled in the web of our desires, our fears, our comforts? And in the very absence of clear moral direction in the Sopranos, the modern audience finds a reflection of the void that is so prevalent today. No God, no universal truth, no guiding principle. And yet, we must act. We must choose. In that struggle lies the potential for personal growth, for becoming. Thus, the show, like my philosophy, compels us to face the chaos and meaninglessness head-on, not with despair, but with a fierceness and hunger to create meaning for ourselves. What then is the value to the modern man? It is this: an opportunity to engage with our most primal, unresolved instincts, to reflect on the nature of power, morality, and self-understanding in a world where these things are no longer given. It challenges us to examine the nature of our own existence, and perhaps most importantly, to embrace the freedom that comes with confronting that which we would rather avoid. And with that, my friend, I will end my analysis of The Sopranos. But what other lessons can we draw from the carapace of popular culture? If you think about it, movies and television are not just shallow comforts. They are cultural artifacts that serve as mirrors of the soul, if you're willing to look deeply into them, to confront not just the surface, but the truths they hide beneath a polished veneer of entertainment. Join me on the next video as I dissect another one of these modern narratives in order to help you awaken from your slumber, to look within, to question, to strive, to become, rather than simply consume. Or perhaps you would prefer to keep your mind distracted with shallow spectacles, afraid to confront the abyss that lies beneath.